All these create chaos for people without the resources to cope. A lot of them, including children, keep falling through the cracks. You'll meet some of those kids now, and some valiant people doing their best to help them. Extraordinary access was given to my colleague at Now, Kathleen Hughes, to report this story.
This is Children's Village, home to 300 of the most troubled boys you're ever likely to meet. It's called a residential treatment center, but it's more akin to a combination group foster home, juvenile detention facility, and psychiatric hospital. About 20 miles north of New York City, it serves boys as old as 18 and as young as 5. In the last decade, as psychiatric hospitals have closed and as other mental health services have been trimmed, more kids with bigger problems are finding their way to places like Children's Village. This is a rare inside look at the extremely difficult task of healing these troubled kids and preparing them for life on the outside.
I remember when 5 years old. It's probably as far back as I could remember. I remember me and my dad having my birthday party and stuff like that.
Sean has been here for nearly 8 years, longer than most. Removed from his parents' custody when he was very young, he's had little contact with his mother.
I have no respect for her. I don't look at her as my mother.
And hardly knows his father. Do you remember when you stopped seeing your dad on a regular basis?
It's not that I stopped, he went to jail.
Louis seems to be one of the busiest teenagers here. Most mornings, he's had breakfast and is out the door by the time the 15 other boys in his house are just waking up. There's barely a program here he's not a part of. Piano lessons.
A lifeguard. I do mountain biking. I rock climb. I go running in the morning.
Bang on my chest if you think I'm perfect.
This morning, it's rehearsal for the upcoming performance of the high school play, The Wizard of Oz. Louis has been here for nearly a year and a half. Before that, he traveled a long road. He lived with several foster families and says he spent time in at least one psychiatric hospital. Children's Village is the last hope. If it doesn't help him, there are consequences, not just for Louis, but for society.
If I were spending the public's money and I were to triage who are the young people today who are most likely to become a ward of the state as adults, most likely to live a life of misery and anguish, most likely to be in the criminal justice system and cost society a lot of dollars in the future, it would be the kids who are in residential treatment centers.
Doing this since I was 4 and a half, 5 years old, I was always fascinated with art. Like I like Vincent van Gogh, I love Goya, I love all the different weird, I like weird type of art, like Keith Haring. I love his little characters with the big heads and small bodies and all that.
Like Louis, Sean has a goal. He wants to live in a group home in New York City. There, he would finish high school and go on to study graphic design.
Should be in here somewhere.
His counselors say his art has proven to be a valuable part of Sean's therapy.
Just my 9 years, I'm not exaggerating when I say I've had at least 5 students who have had their parents murdered. The majority of them witnessed it.
Chapter 1, Jason's nightmares come to life.
You have to keep those things in mind and then just know, how do I help a kid like this?
And Jason lived in a big house on a hill alone because his mother and father died.
We explained to them that education is the only thing nobody can ever take away from you. Everything else you can lose, nobody can take your knowledge away from you.
The 5th graders have been writing stories since the beginning of the year.
There was once a teenage mutant who had a boxing tournament. He was the fastest puncher on Earth.
Readings have become a special event.
That's my hobby. I read and write.
And it's a hobby? That's great.
Aaron Myers, now 31, is an alumnus of Children's Village.
Thank you, Mr. Myers.
With a master's in social work, he's returned here to care for children whose stories he knows all too well.
I was born cocaine addicted, and so I was an extremely hyper child, Ritalin, the whole 9 yards. Both my parents, significant drug addiction issues, and, seen it in my face, and and significant mental illness on one side of the family. And, you know, to see one of your guardians talking to trees and having to go to school, and, you know, one of my parents literally tried to kill themselves 18 times before it actually happened.
Sound it out. Most of their funding comes from the government, but Children's Village raises private money to supplement its budget. It uses it to fund innovative programs which have become national models. One is called WAY, which stands for Work Appreciation for Youth. The WAY program allows boys to earn the right to make money in a variety of jobs. Everything from operating a greenhouse to repairing computers to running a snack shop.
No amount of mental health services that we deliver, no matter how good our clinical work, is going to last an hour when they leave here if they can't hold a job and if they don't have a good, solid education. Those two things are the most important things we do.
3 afternoons a week, Sean cuts hair at the campus barber shop. He apprentices with a licensed barber. After 1,000 hours, he'll be eligible for a New York license.
Come clear.
Lewis trained service dogs in the WAY program. He also lifeguards, earning $14 an hour at a local public pool during the summer.
The WAY program is the thing that turned my life around. It said to me that you have value. I mean, I had been told so many times that, you know, what are we going to do with him? You know, I can't take this child any longer. That I had internalized that I was bad. And I think that the WAY program helped me switch the focus. I'm not so bad. I can get a job. I can earn money. I can save. I can go to college.
It worked for Aaron Myers. He had a WAY mentor who stuck by him throughout his college years. It cost Children's Village about $3,000 a year to track a boy who leaves the system. But Myers believes the long-term follow-up is worth it.
The system would say, well, they're 21 and they need to go out and live in the world. However, the most troubled children, when they're 21, has to go and navigate the rest of the world, and that's okay. When we realize that the least troubled children in our society don't leave home at 21 and say everything's okay. They call home, they run up the credit card bill, they flunk out of school, mommy helps them find a job, mom and dads are there because that's what they're supposed to be.
Staff members like Ray Thomas are always working to make up for the parental guidance most of these kids lack. But there are 170 other boys in the WAY program, all of whom demand a tremendous amount of attention.
Yo, what's up, yo?
In recent months, Sean has been reunited with someone who's become a complete stranger to him. His father.
I'm all right.
They meet every other Wednesday. Sean's father is 32 years old. He was recently released from Attica State Prison. As part of his parole, he is living in a residential drug treatment center. Both his and Sean's counselors agreed it would benefit them to get to know one another.
Me and his mother, he was only 14 years old. We wasn't really parents, we was kids having kids. You know, and we didn't know what was responsibilities and none of that. You know, so actually it didn't really hurt me or bother me until I started growing up. Started realizing, yo, that's my son out there, you know. I understand that I'm Sean's father, but what I don't understand is why he loves me the way he does when I've never been there. We gotta start somewhere.
You do good, okay?
All right. I'd rather have him see me as a friend and work our way to father and sonship. All right, Dad.
What keeps me in this field is it's the most hopeful work, I think, anywhere. People often ask me, isn't this work depressing? And it's exactly the opposite. It is the most rejuvenating, that you get to see that kids to whom so much has been done really do have within them this reservoir of hope, of wanting to have their lives different. That's pretty hopeful stuff.